everything works how it's supposed to. And in Matthew chapter, not Matthew, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, talks about the administration of the body. And each one has its ministration in terms of carrying the body and developing the body as it's supposed to. We liken it to the work, or we liken it to the members of the church. And like the body, the church is also made up of members, and each member carries with it unique gifts, unique talents that is designed to develop the church and to help the church to position itself where it could reach maturity and perfection. And in doing that, what we find is that it helps develop the lives of individuals. It promotes stronger living, and it helps to promote each member to a place where you could move out from where you came in, or move out from being or thinking worldly, and developing yourself into spiritual maturity. What we also understand is that spiritual maturity takes time, and it takes development. But more so, Paul was given the scenario that some of these Greeks in the Roman church, they had issue. And one of the things that was highlighted in chapter 11 is that they found themselves being boastful, thinking that they were the foundation of the church. And Paul had to identify that no, it's not so. And then he went on to chapter 12, and he tells the church that they need to present themselves as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is their reasonable service. Now, he went on to show how the development ought to take place. And then he talks about these gifts. But one of the things that is interesting about these gifts is that even though the gifts are unique, one of the things about these gifts is that these gifts, they are, or let me put it this way. The thing about these gifts is that one of the traits that run through all the gifts is that thing called love, right? And that is what binds all the gifts together, right? So no matter the gift, no matter what we do, there must always be that common line of love. We must love. You understand? And so in verse number 8, it tells us that these gifts, as were used by the members, they must be done in a cheerful manner. Let's read verse number 8. In fact, let's read from verse 8 to 8 of 13. He said, or he that exhorted on exhortation, he that giveth, let him do so with simplicity. He that ruleth with diligence. He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of the saints, given to hospitality. Let's pause there for a while. So these gifts must be done in a cheerful way, as stated at the end of verse 8. But what it says in verse number 9, as we move on, it talks about let love be without dissimulation. It's just a big word to tell you that don't be a hypocrite in sharing your love. And what was happening is that don't do things under false pretense. Because when we do it under false pretense, what happens is we lose the effectiveness of the work. You see, it's like I coming to assist you. I tell you that, look, I'm going to sweep your yard. And in doing so, I come, I want a broom, I wanted this, I wanted that. Then when I started to do it, I am lackadaisical, I am not really into the work. And when I'm finished, or when I say I am finished, there's still stuff all over the place. There is not this love that really binds me or really pushes me to really do a proper job. And so it is he's saying that, look, when we are doing things or when we are using our gifts, let it be dedicated. Let us be dedicated to the work. Let us be dedicated to the task. Let us not be halfway there or partially there. Because too many times we tend to want to do works. And we do shoddy jobs, right? And what happens is when we do shoddy work, we upset people. You come to build, or you come to work by me, you come to do building, and then when you're done out, you watch the wall, and the wall leaning one side. That's vexing. Because you spend your money to do the work, you spend your money to get good work done, and then now, at the end of it, you got bad walls, bad plastering, and everything out of line. And if you have to fix it, there's a whole lot of money to do that. And sometimes we say we love, but we don't take time to learn properly. And we don't take time sometimes to do things properly. And this renders us ineffective, right? Even in the church, sometimes you see teachers come to teach and they are unprepared. They give you half-picked duck. They talk things that are not related to what is going on. They talk things and they can't explain what they are seeing in the scripture. And so it is, they give you half-picked duck. You cannot grow with that. And this is what he is saying. So he's telling us that, look, let it not be done. Let us not give. Let us love in a genuine manner. Let our love not be hypocritical. And that's what he's saying here in verse number 9. He also went on to say, abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. And it makes sense. Because if we have to love in a genuine way, then it means that we have to really put our effort to make it work and to make it good. Otherwise, we just find ourselves not practicing and doing things in an effective manner to build. Right? We'll talk a little more on that, right? To tie everything in as we go through the verses. Now, in verse number 10, he said, be kindly affectionate one with another. Love and honor, preferring one another. For the Christian faith to strive, there must be love among the brotherhood. But more importantly, brethren must be given first preference or access to whatever we have, right? So when he talks about being affectionate or displaying affection, what he is saying to us is that we must share among each other kindness. We must share among each other, right, a fellowship that will build, a fellowship that will last. You know, when we do that and we do when we have good fellowship and we show good affection, do you know relationship lasts a long time? Because of how we display, how we carry ourselves. Because once we do it in a genuine manner, love lasts. I prefer you tell me the truth about me. And it hurts because I am hearing it, but what you're really describing is who I am. Than to tell me something else. And I know to myself it's not true. And I know to myself that what you're saying is not true. And I know that you know the truth and you're not telling me the truth. You see? Sometimes affection demands that I tell you like it is, even though it hurts, right? And many times we are afraid to do that because we feel that we will hurt the person feeling. Sometimes we feel that we will lose a friend. We will, and so it is, we mask. We stay away from the truth because the truth sometimes tend to break relationship at the point in time. But let me tell you something. Sometimes they don't. It actually pulls it together. You might not like what I'm telling you now. You might cut me off because I tell you the truth. Paul say, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Sometimes it hurts. But to have meaningful relationship, I prefer you tell me one truth and you tell me 1,000 lies. And you know nothing in me, no sense. They make no, you're not helping me to do anything. You see? And so as we develop ourselves in affection, what he is telling us is that let us do it in a genuine way, right? So that it will have meaning. If at the end of the day, one thing I could say about this man, he always tells me the truth. And I'm able to check myself because the truth helps me to develop my character because you are telling me like it is, right? So he's telling us, and he's also saying, right, and he goes on further. Yeah. Go ahead.
But we could see it, right? But then to apply it is a difference because I believe as we develop relationship, that truth could sound different based on who is seeing it and how they're seeing it. So for example, I can talk to Patricia in a way that I can't talk to Mr. Joey because we have a different relationship layer. I can be frank because we are at that level. But Mr. Joy, I have to use my words more cautiously, right? So the more we fellowship too, it brings on our relationship, and now you feel more comfortable to see that too, because everybody's not at the same comfort level, even within the church. So sometimes I might be able to approach Ayana to say something, but I know Ayana and Cassidy have a good relationship. I could tell Cassidy that she might be different because it's sometimes we come from.
Sometimes, let me put it like this. Sometimes, not always what you say, but how you say it. But then again, there are times when how you say it doesn't really matter. The idea is to get the point across, right? Because I remember a time in my life, they probably still have remnants of it or still there. I was crass. I used to just say things, you know. I would tell you you're a thief, you know, and it offends. And what happens is, at the end of the day, people used to vex. But at the end of the day, hear what? They get the message. So mere buttering and currying and all of that and flouring it up to tell you. There are times when you just have to be straight at what you do. Well, they say a straight arrow. Right? But normally we try to package it so that people wouldn't get hurt. Right? But yes.
But it's only coming in from the church and sometimes because it's one shop and it's the only teaching them, somebody just accept it. They think they're instead of children, but I'm sure you ever said, and they will not listen to you, everybody. But Stephen, I'm going to tell you, and Eli had a relationship with him. And when they told me that it is, that you know, do it, you know, it's not going to sin. Why did you tell us, children? This son, do it. So the church depends. Whether they like it or not, it doesn't depend. It goes. And all of them church.
Something I read, a good point that you made there. And I remember, I can't remember the setting of the passage, but Jesus told the Pharisees that your inside is like dead men bones. That's an insult. You see? And Jesus just tell them like it is. So sometimes we tend to want to butter up things, to bring it across in a nice way so we look good and them look good. And then won't feel so bad. But sometimes the truth needs to go as it is. Because this is what it takes to shake people up or to shake a situation up. And sometimes to rock a boat, you need to tell it like it is. You see? And sometimes it's not always about, you know, finding a nice way to say it. Yes, we could if we can. But there are times when we just need to say it like it is. Yes, sis. Yeah. I'm coming back to you.
I have in church constantly how to do as it we started from the Lord, but we was up with it. 400 I subscribe to what we did allow after. At the end of the system. She come around this before and I don't know the next one. And don't allow it. Don't after the goal of my several. With a speak together. And I would shut up for now because people want to record and I answer, but actually, if you really desperate and sometimes people see the whole point of this. But of course, we want to be material, but that is inspired.
Right, we have to understand that there are times when if we spend too much time trying to think about how to say what we want to say, we lose the essence of what we want to say. Right? And sometimes you can't bring it in your mind now to how to present it, and you're not leaving it alone because you don't want to offend people. But there are times when offense is necessary. Sometimes we don't realize that there are times when offense is necessary. I need to tell you like it is. I have fired people on work, and I have told them, don't come back because they're not doing good work. No, I can't go on always say, but you know, I have money, and you know, have funds and this and sometimes that could go. Right? But not all the time you don't want to do that. Then you're not doing a good job and I don't want to come. And that is the plain for you. Right? When you get yourself together with it. Plain talk. Sometimes we have to be straight up. Otherwise, sometimes people, if we are not straight up at times, people take advantage of us. And because we feel they know you're trying to butter it up. Because they realize how you're afraid to tell them like it is. But there are times when we have to tell people like it is. I don't want you to come back. You had you had your opportunity to do this or to do that, and you foul up. That can't work for me. I have to let you go. Plain talk. You understand what I'm saying? And there are times that we need to do it that way. Right? Sometimes in doing it that way, we send a message. And the message is that you're saying, get yourself together. Get yourself together. Because if I always butter, we'll try to butter things to let you know. And look, I'm always trying to produce a soft landing. You never always get your point across, and people will take this serious. You see? Sometimes we just have to tell people like this, even though it hurts. Especially when people are offending you. And people will watch you in your face and tell you. People running, they're running foolishness in your face. They're taking advantage of you in your face. You know, it's like a little child. They tell them, don't touch that. And they're watching it in your face. And sometimes you gotta deal with it straight up. Straight up. Not every time you will butter. I remember I was in our class and I tell the teacher, I say, I say something to the teacher, you don't make no sense. I get to go to the class. But in the end, I'm not going back because gotta deal with that. Gotta get my qualification. And he did get himself together. Because you can't come be wasting my time. I walk in whole day and I have to come and deal with nonsense. You know what you are about. Get yourself together. Yeah, somebody on there now.
I need to watch you. It's a different from being a counselor and telling you what's there, or the person who's on there. You know, guys, when the person's going to get the
I think what you're saying is a person in worship. The man that do it to do good and doesn't do it to him it is accounted for his sin. Right? And what happens is we got to know who we are. How I should say this. There are times, every situation you have to treat it on its own merit. Right? And there's a time for everything, but communication is important. How you communicate. That's a big thing. And if we don't learn, and throughout years, over the years, you will gain experience. Experience will tell you, look, there are times when I need to be a little softer, and there's a time that I need to be straight up. Experience will tell you, right? And you got to know how to be able to dispense. You follow what I'm saying? All right. Let's move on a bit.
Right, and it's important for the brothers and sisters. You basically would never tell everything. But if you know how communication with somebody, tell them everything outside the spicy thing. Because when I ask communication, I think it's important, and brother Paul and everybody else mentioned that if you go to somebody and tell somebody something, you have to tell one sister something different to the other sister. Because of your relationship with the person, how they will receive the information, right? Sometimes it's not only how the same, it's how they will receive it. So you can put it up and present it very nice, but if you don't have a good relationship with the person, you will not be able to get anything across to them. And that's why people dispense the information of the truth. And that's why it's important to, we have two ears to listen and one more to talk. Sometimes when you go around somebody, you listen to them, you have two eyes to observe them. You observe the person, you listen to them. And sometimes you see one person might get through or some personnel might get to. Because you have to understand individual who you are dealing with. And that's why you don't take time to understand individual. Because somebody can be harsh to somebody, but you sitting in the corner and you be quiet, they observe you. And you can go to them after and you can speak with them, and they will relate to you. Right? But you have to be able to observe and then come up to the eye from the other way, one mouth. Too many times we just want to use one mouth and don't use our ears and our eyes. So we're ready to dispense the truth. We're ready to correct people. We're ready to tell them things. And we don't understand where they're coming from. We don't understand about the relationship with them. We didn't take time. And relationship is not like spending a whole night of time with people. Relationship sometimes is getting to understand somebody. You sit down next to somebody and you start like, you might say nothing. And you start to understand this person. Simply because you hear what they're saying. Sometimes they say something, sometimes they're so angry, but you don't understand the depth that they are coming from. And that's why we need to take time to build a relationship. So my recommendation is to hear, to speak, take time to process, and then talk. But too many times we want to talk first, and we don't understand where it's coming from. Because you cannot go and tell a grieving mother, go curse and don't get told. If she didn't get the service that she wanted to hospital. You cannot go and tell a grieving mother that. Right? If they love the child, if they love somebody. So you have to take time, even if it's a Christian or not, you have to give that person time to grieve. Take time and say, well, you know, after you also, well, you know, you didn't think like that. But don't go and tell the person that at the point in time. It would not resonate with them. It wouldn't make sense. There's time and place and how is it done, what they say. So sometimes your relationship is not spending time together. Fellowship is good, yes. But taking time to understand the individual, just of the individual.
Yeah, share that. I think that marries everything. Because put things in perspective. You know, I tell you what I don't do. You know, I don't tell you. I can't take off enough. Best way to get to respond. So talk with me. They, you know, where the money goes, they do that one. I get straight on. Good trip to me. Most likely, I ready to. What she said was just smoking and put everything together. You don't understand. You don't understand people. And I said before, at times when we put pocket shares, put it together, and time when we are in the street. You are in a situation that you do. Things I tell you about, how I respond, right? It's because this is how I assess the situation. Sometimes people take advantage. Sometimes you need to talk to them, to tell them straight up. And we will have Jesus' example of how he responded to some people. That was straight up. The times when he was cool on, one thought in adultery, he didn't run for them up. So, all right, no more. He that has, where do I go? He that without sin.
Cast the first stone. Right? That was a penetrating line. That line cut deep. But look how simple it came across. Because what it did, what he said appealed to conscience. And what they had to do is go inside and search themselves and check. And then they realize now that, wait a minute, I have flaws. So all man drop stone and they disappear. Right? So we got to understand there's time for everything. You wanted to say something?
Having that relationship, you will know how to that's the situation. Because in the society, they brought the woman, but nothing was said about the man. They say they report any very hard. But we was the man. The man also guilty, but they didn't bring the woman. Remember the son, because I left out. All the other woman. So,
Yeah. And they just wanted, only was the trap Jesus, I wouldn't say.
And Jesus recognizing that, and he responded to suit, you know. But as I said before, experience teachers is the greatest teacher. And it helps you to know how to respond. How I responded to situations, you know, earlier in my life, I don't respond to them that way anymore, right? It's not that I can't do it, but I've learned to do things much differently. Yes, right, for want of a better word. And
So it's not like it's going to you very often, but
I'm not only that, but sometimes,
you realize that there's more passion, right? There's more knowledge. There's more experience within you. So you could do it different, right? Because a few things came to mind, but I don't think I want to say that. Not from the pulpit. Yeah, not from the pulpit. I'm giving an example, but not from the pulpit. You could see me after. Right? But there are times when sometimes people let me put it this way. I've seen where people who commit adultery, right? Sometimes they are humiliated, right? And in my mind, I don't think that is the best way to handle it. Sometimes we allow people to go up in front and confess and all of that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's the best way to handle that, right? And I think maturity has taught us that there are different ways to deal with stuff like that. You see? Because at the end of the day, we are all sinners, right? My sin might be different to your sin. But at the end of the day, we all struggling in the same way with different things, right? We know what pain is. Your pain might be different to my pain. But pain is pain, wherever it comes from. And we got to understand the key word there is pain, and how we treat with it makes a difference. And this is why Paul is saying to these Romans, he said, be affectionate, right? And he goes on to say, I want to jump a verse here. Where is it? It's in Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, the last verse. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse number 32. This is what Paul was saying to the Ephesians. He said, be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, had forgiven you. Right? You see that word, be kind one to another, right? That shows affection. It shows that I am in touch with you. It shows that I am connecting with you. And there are times when I need to express that connection by how I relate with you. Because if we don't take these things, or if these things are not part of us, then we will say anything and do anything to one another, and we will be all right. But we got to understand, as Sister Lisa was saying, we got to understand people. And we got to understand who we are to and where we are to at the point in time. There are sometimes when we can't say it, when there are times when we need to be tender. And sometimes, I'll just use me as an example. I can't be tender at the point in time. So I might have to put it off or let somebody else deal with it. You see, to make the point across, right? So that there will be no uproar at the end of it. So we need to be kind to one another, and we need to be tender-hearted. And this is what Paul is bringing home. And when he brings home that point, he's telling us that, look, when we operate like that, it removes hypocrisy from the relationship that we have. Because I want to be true to you. I want to have a meaningful relationship with you. There are times when I need to tell you in a tender way. And there are times when I need to tell you straightforward. And straightforward doesn't always mean aggression. And it doesn't always mean I say things that I shouldn't be saying, even though I am saying the truth. So we got to be in that tender, in that affection, we have to be tender-hearted in how we do things, right?
Admission in the sense that, you know, you're going to tell somebody something. And you sometimes have to come across and let them know, I am a sinner too. I have been through this. You don't have to tell them exactly what the sin is, but I have been through this. And I see that it's a struggle. And you don't hold that person accusation or say that you're doing this and you're doing that and you're wrong and you shouldn't do this and you can do that. So we are all sinners and rightfully take. We sometimes have, when we have to go to people, we have to talk to people, we have to give them, play your story sometimes. I am a sinner too, I have been through this, and I see you struggling, and I see you doing this, and you know, if you want to help, you'll never help you. So it's kind of we have to speak to them in such a way, not accusation, not beating them down. You have to speak to them in a way that they want to understand what they're going through. Sympathetic. Understand what they're going through. I have been through that. If they need help, we can talk. You understand what I'm saying? But then you want to go to correct people and we want to speak to them as if we are statements. And we think they're the worst thing. You come, yes, you come out from the psyche, you down there and they up here. So we sometimes have to word that across in such a way that we have to sometimes explain our situation. I have been there. I used to use drugs. I used to use drugs. I used to smoke weed. You understand? So I have a brother who used to smoke weed and used to throw up. I've heard that process so when it can be and it can be comfortable in receiving your information.
I want to add to that course that there are times
when you could say things without really going into details. And that is what we call the unspoken word. So that when I speak and you listen, you know that I am coming from a place of understanding. I've probably had the experience, I've probably been exposed to people who have the experience without I telling you that, look, I know about these things, I understand. You say, what, sorry?
yes, empathy, right? Empathy, right? And sometimes
Not only empathy, but sometimes sympathy too as well applies in the situation, right? And we have to go to a place or be in a place in our hearts where we could speak to people and they know that, look, we are understanding. And that is where the tender heart comes into the picture. I could relate to what you're saying. I could relate to what you are doing because I understand. Whether by the experience or whether by, being around people who really know. Yes.
That's one of the paradox. Sympathy and empathy is two different things.
Yes, they are.
Sympathy is understanding that that is the person's problem and I will help you. But during the day, empathy is understanding that that's the person's problem, but I can't sleep when the night comes because I study the person's problem.
Sure.
I internalize it. So empathy is more like a family, like the children, the husband. But when for example, like when we deal in psychology with people, you have to do something called compartmentalization. We have to be able to help the person and walk away without carrying it home. Because you will carry home everybody's problem and you will live. So, it's not sympathy. Sympathy, you have to understand the problem you're willing to help and you're willing to go through. But from the time you leave that person's presence, not to leave this with them. That's just to protect you so that you will be able to help yourself and to be able to help somebody else.
Usually
Counselors, they operate in that fashion. They use a lot of sympathy, right? Because when they have to deal with a number of people, right? You can't take home all the people, all the problems that you hear about for the day. You can't carry them, all of that. You don't have the capacity to do it, right? So sometimes I hear you, I understand you, I will work with you, right? But you keep your problems to yourself, so to speak, right? But I'm working with you to get it, but I'm not absolving your problem, right? Empathy is a little different, as she explained, right? And we got to know the difference, right? If we have a walk with people, because too much of the time I've seen members, they go and they talk to people and then them can't sleep. Them worse off than the person who they're talking to. You see, and it happens, right? And we got to know how to separate, right? The two, right? The issues, right? We'll pause on that verse 10. Let me just introduce verse 11. And in verse 11, I plan to reach verse 16 today. But nevertheless, I believe that we are getting the point, right? And the discussion really helps. The discussion really helps to for us to better understand and to connect in our minds how we ought to conduct ourselves, how we ought to behave. Right? So in verse 11, Romans 12. So in verse 11 says, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Right? There are many times we as Christians, we don't let our yea be nay and our nay be nay. We say yes are coming and we don't show up. Not so. We say we're going to do and we don't do. And sometimes we say yes, we come in and we come and we halfway there. We don't do what we said that we're going to do thoroughly or in a meaningful way. So he's advising us that the love that we have for one another, we cannot be slothful. We got to allow ourselves to be faithful and fruitful. Let me ask this question. Do you think that the church could be in a better place let me say it the next way. Do you think that the church could be in a better place? I'm saying the same thing. All right. See, when you think too much, when you're thinking too much, what has happened? Do you think that the church could be in a better place if we No, that's not how I want to ask it. That's not how I want to ask. I want to get there, but that's not how I want to reach there. Do you think that people are slothful in the church? That's why the church can't be better. I think that's what I want to ask. Do you think that the church could be in a better place? Do you think that the church or the members of the church, I ain't talking about here, this congregation, I'm talking about what you know. Do you think that the church could be in a better place if members were to not be slothful in business? Right. I didn't want to say it like that because I now get a one-word answer. I didn't want a one-word answer. What do you think that we could do? Or where do you think we have gone wrong? You're close to that for today. Where do you think we have gone wrong? We could start it off. Yeah, time gone already. Yeah, we'll take a little.
Ourselves know how the Muslims operate, right? They teach their children from an early age that religion is important. Religion is important, right? Everything is towards religion. But in Church of Christ, and I'm talking as Church of Christ, we still operate in the environment that you can drive in a Benz. Wow. If you're living in Westmoreland, wow. If you're, these kind of ideologies that we still impart onto our children and onto ourselves, that the material things is still much more important. So even giving to the church is coming like a second nature. Giving to the kingdom is coming like a second nature. We have people, I think that's what today though. We want to give our jobs. Now we're not making them, you know. We have a little people, we want to have a little procession. Have something else. It's almost like second nature. But in the Muslim community, no matter what you do, I would just close with that. And on Friday, I go out and look at it. Business is out of God. Stop. What?
Yes. Sorry. It's something that I want to
Go on a little more. And I want us to read verse 16 because what I'm asking here connects to verse 16 in the chapter. Right? And I want to next day I hope that we could marry some of these things so that we will better understand what is required of us and what we are doing to make this thing better, right? Because we have to ask ourselves, am I making my contribution to make the church a better place? I've seen where too many times members take it upon themselves by saying that the church not doing, let's say, field work, I go in and do it. The church not doing benevolence, I am going to do it. But it's not a you thing. You see, it's not a you thing. It's a we thing. And are we being effective individually? Or are we collectively making the effort to make things happen? Right? So I just want to thank you for your time and we'll continue this discussion next day. Right? So thank you.